Hey, welcome back. If this is new to you, this is a 1937 Chevy Master Deluxe that we're slamming onto an S10 chassis. Right now what we've got is the Vortec motor just kind of hanging there by the engine hoist, and we're going to have to make some custom motor mounts for that, custom transmission crossmember, so there's a lot to do. I appreciate everybody coming back. If you have comments, please leave them. Give me suggestions on how we can make this thing work out a little bit better. I'm doing this for the first time, so this is not necessarily a teach you how to do it thing. It's just showing you how I'm doing it, and I'm making it up as I go. So, hopefully it's something that's useful for you if this is the first time you're building something like this. So thanks for coming back, everybody. Let's jump right into getting some work done. Well, what I'd have to say is, if you're watching my channel, you're probably watching other channels like Bad Chad or Half-Ass Customs or Vice Grip Garage, those kind of things. If you want to watch and learn and figure out how to do things, there are much better people than me. As I said before, I'm just documenting what I'm doing, but here's kind of my setup on the inside to fabricate my transmission crossmember. I needed to know the center line, of course, so all I did is I took my scrap of 2x4 and I clamped it on either side of the frame and marked center. I got my output of my transmission lined up there, and I'm doing a little tug of war with some ratchet straps here just so it doesn't move back and forth side to side. Then what I'm going to do out front is I'm going to mark center line probably on the crank pulley, center line on the front cross member, so that the drivetrain is centered in the vehicle. And then we, of course, will have to figure out our drive shaft length after that. You'll also notice that after spilling all of the transmission fluid, and there's probably none left anymore, now I finally put a bag with some duct tape on there. So, here's to thinking ahead and winning. So now that we've got the transmission set here, I'm going to go up front and I'm going to mark center line on that. Then we can do our measurements for fabricating our motor mounts up front. Okay, so here we are on the front of the engine, and all I did, another ratchet strap, and that's just gently pulling to keep me center line. I'm just using the crank pulley center bolt there as a reference, using this as a reference in the cross member, assuming that they hopefully are inline enough, at least inline enough for a rat rod. So we've got the drivetrain in the middle. And if we come over here, you can see where the motor mount for the passenger side was. You can see this on the engine block, and you can see this is that piece that we looked at before that goes to the lower control arm. That seems like an awesome place to fabricate a custom motor mount for this side. Plenty of room over here, actually, lots of access. I have headers, as I said, so what I may do is, just for ease of access in here, I might take these off anyways. On the driver's side, it's a little bit tighter over here for whatever reason, but same kind of thing. You can see down in there, that looks like a good place. I'm not sure why we got all this. Just seems like there's less room over here. So, yeah, so probably pop the exhaust manifold off of there so I have access, so I can do some templating so that we can make our motor mounts. So probably first things first, since the exhaust manifolds are coming off anyways, maybe I'll do that just so that we have more room to work with. Probably not going to be really great access for filming anything, but I'll kind of keep you updated along the process, when I'm making pieces to try and fit in there. So that's the plan for today. All right, so before I go any further, as I said, I'm a rookie at this. I've never moved a drivetrain back or anything like that before. It's just kind of funny, the things you realize. I'm like, why the heck is that side over there so much closer to the frame than this side? And then I just kind of, you step back 2 feet and you're like, no wonder. If no one noticed this before, the motor was, 10 degrees tilted that way. So I moved my ratchet strap to the back so I could lift up on the driver's side. And now we got ourselves level in this direction, which that's good. As far as, the angle down, I'm kind of trying just to match what was on the cross member there. I really don't know what my pinion angle should be because I don't know what ride height is going to be. So I think when I build my cross member here, I'm going to build it low so I can shim it up if needed, because it'd be much harder to, if I'm too high, to go down. At least that's my plan. So we're still centered back here. If we come up front, we're pretty centered up here on our crank pulley and my reference on the front of the crossmember. Now the engine is actually level, bonus, and so we're kind of dialing it into where we can start building mounts. So just wanted to share that with you. As I said, I'm not here to provide instruction. I'm providing my experience and doing it for the first time, just so that if anybody's out there building one of these things for themselves for the first time, understand there's a learning curve, and you're probably going to do things wrong the first time. At least I caught that mistake before something stupid was done. So now that we've got that, we can take some measurements. Looks like we're centered, level, and ready to go. Okay, so here's my super scientific method. I just cut some cardboard until I came up with kind of a pattern that looked like it would match up in there. I'm going to make those pieces out of 1/4-inch plate that I have here that are left over. So we're going to cut these pieces out, and then this is going to be welded to the frame, and then the motor mount I've got that traced out over here. We'll cut this out, and we will weld this doodad after it's made out of the 1/4-inch plate, and hopefully it fits. So that will be the next chore. That pattern there is for the passenger side. I think what I will do is get that at least tacked in place, held in place, so that that one's not moving before I do this one, so I can try and minimize the number of variables that I'm messing around with. So that be the plan right now. Okay, so here's kind of the concept, building an I-beam type of thing. You can see there's a little bit of an angle on there. This is the plate that's going to go on the motor mount that's in the chassis. This is going to go to that crossmember. So that plate is going to match up to that, and my little angled doodad is going to match up to that. And we're going to, I don't know, I'm probably going to take that out, maybe tack it to this. Shove that in there, tack this to that, unbolt that mount, and fully weld it up so that when this is in the vehicle and I put the motor in, it'll work, right? I mean, yep, that's my plan. Okay, so here's the concept. You can see we've got our little I-beam in there. It's on that thing, so I'm going to weld that. Well, I'll just tack it in place right now. I'll tack that plate to that. Then ultimately what I'm gonna have to do is pull the engine out again so I can clean all the grease and crap off of that. Tack that to that bit there on the frame. Pull the drivetrain again and weld that entirely to that crossmember thing there. Not crossmember, whatever the A-arm is, that's part of the frame. So that's going to be kind of our motor mount setup. So this is the passenger side. I got to duplicate this on the other side. So that's now. I'll just go make the other piece. Well, here's my motor mounts. Will they win any internet beauty contests for welding? Probably not, but will they be adequate to hold a V6 into a Chevy? Probably. So we're gonna go mount these up and tack them to the mounts that are in the chassis. Then I can pull the drivetrain and finish welding up everything, clean up the frame so that I can weld these to the chassis. So the other thing I did is I made sandwiches out of my plate, and then these are the mounts that used to go on the cross member of the old chassis. So I just made a sandwich there, focus, and basically welded that to that. The mount that I made will go on the bottom part here, and then this obviously has the bolt hole for the motor mount. So got that done here. You know, again, nothing special. I'm not here to teach you how to weld. I'm learning myself. First time I'm doing anything like this, and I'm self-taught as far as welding. So, I mean, I'll take it. Let's go put them in. Okay, so I pulled that out. It wasn't, I mean, it's nothing exciting. Just had to get rid of it. But that'll give me the opportunity to clean these two areas up where I'm going to weld my new motor mounts to. Also, it's going to give me a chance to clean up some things on the motor here. The oil cooler lines, I'm going to get rid of those. I'll probably get a remote cooler for the oil. There's also the transmission cooling lines. These things just get in the way while I'm working. And then also I'm going to remove the original mount for the transmission, so that's done and out of the way. So when we put this back in, I can tack in the motor mounts to those things. Then I'll take this out again, fully weld them on. Once the motor mounts are welded on, and I'm sure that the engine's secured, then we will figure out our transmission cross member. So lots of moving pieces and parts here, but I didn't think we needed to watch me pull the drivetrain yet again. Probably gonna happen, like I said, 18 more times, just part of the process. So I'm gonna clean those things up right now. All right, so here we are back in. So like I said, deleted the transmission cooler lines, deleted the oil cooler lines, deleted the power steering lines, took off the positive lead to the starter. So we got a clean front of the motor here. Probably should have done that a while ago, would have been less of a pain in my ass. When you saw me jump in here, it was me monkeying around with my ratchet straps to make sure that my tail of the transmission is lined up with my mark for center line. Out here, we're back where we should be. We are centered. I don't know if you can get the perspective there, or at least center as I can get it. I'm focusing, yeah, go in front. I'm using that as my reference just to line up with the crank bolt to try and make sure that the front of the motor is centered. And hopefully those mounts that I made, now that I've taken this out and put it back in, hopefully they fit. So I will put those in and try tacking them in place. Take them out, take the motor out, weld them in, and maybe then the transmission, the engine will be secured. Okay, so here we are later. I don't know how long it took me to get here, but I had to do a lot of modifications or trying to tweak this and that, but I got a little tack here and a little tack on the back of the mount. Same thing on the passenger side. So now what happens is I will take these mounts out. I will fully weld this part to this part. Then I will reinstall it on the motor, put the motor back in, tack that to that part of the frame, pull the motor back out, weld that part to the frame. So when the motor is out, this piece here and this piece here will be connected to the frame. At least that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. So I didn't show you any of that because there is absolutely nowhere that I could put the camera that you would have had any idea what I'm doing, digging around in a little hole there. But I will pull this out, show you what we did, weld that, both of them, put them back in, tack the mount to the frame, pull the engine again, weld the mount to the frame, put the engine back in. I think I said that right. And after all of that, we're out by half a degree, whatever. I'm taking it. I mean, it's a rat rod, not a race car. So then of course, after all that's done, we come back here and do this part. Meh, that's the way it goes. All right, so let me get this out again for how many, whatever. Keep going. We're gonna keep going. Okay, well, I got to tell you, this is about the most absurd thing that I can imagine. Okay, so I have the mounts in down there. Okay, I'm going to tack them to the frame. But to get this exactly where I want it, centered on the frame, I'm using the crank bolt in that hole to align it on center. I had to pull the driver side forward just a little bit to make my motor mount line up, so I've got a ratchet strap here. I had to make it as level as possible. The driver side was a little bit low, so I have a ratchet strap from my hoist down to that side of the motor. We're off by 0.3 of a degree. We're gonna take it. I then have my 2 ratchet straps back here holding that thing on the center line. So now that everything is where it should be as far as where we're gonna put this motor in this car, I am ready to tack the motor mounts to the frame. So here you can see what we're gonna have is my sandwich there with my kind of I-beam on the motor mount to the frame. So again, there is nowhere that I can put the camera for any of that content to be recorded. So I am just going to do it. Then the next thing you'll see me do, as I've said like 18 times now, is pull this for the 34th time after those are tacked in, so that then I can fully weld those to the frame. And then I can put the motor back in. And then when I'm done with that, then we do the transmission. So, yep, we're on our way. Well, this is deja vu. We got a motor on a engine hoist over here. But what we did do is we got these tacked in. So now these are tacked to the frame. The engine came out pretty easy, didn't bind up at all. So hopefully that's good. I did get them about where I wanted to. So if I measure from the center to center there, it's about 12.5 inches that I was able to move the drivetrain back. I don't know how far vertical it dropped, but you know, if we just kind of eyeball that, I don't know, from there, maybe a couple inches, it dropped down into the frame. It's nice that it fits in the chassis here. As far as this, I don't think I'm going to clean any of it up. I think this truck had 123,000 miles on it, so all the grease and grime that's there, that's perfect rust proofing. Probably just going to leave it. I'll probably hit these with a little bit of a rattle can once they're welded in. So I'm going to hop in the chassis right in there, and I'm going to weld this up. No, I put my cardboard down there. I was about to lay on the floor to weld the bottom of the engine mount, and then I realized, oh hell, I've got the chassis on the left. Why don't I just pick it up and then I don't have to, be super duper uncomfortable. So got it up here. I'm going to do the bottom side of the motor mounts, and we're rocking and rolling. Well, here's a perspective you don't get every day, but got the mounts welded in all the way from the bottom. Just get a light on there for you so you can see kind of what we did. Focus. So we're burned in all the way around I think those will hold, especially for what we're working with, which is that thing over there. So kids are at camp this week. This is Sunday afternoon. I think I got it 4 or 5 hours in, so that's pretty spectacular. I am going to do the transmission mount sometime later this week. And, you know, hopefully then we can drop the drivetrain in and we can really move forward. And then I can finish the floor and all the other things that have to be done. So that's kind of the update for Sunday. Hopefully, you know, we're going to make some good progress this week. So I'll probably add to this later this week. Again, comments, appreciate it. Like it, subscribe, all that kind of stuff that the people on YouTube usually say. So I'm going to clean up in here, and that's the end of Sunday. Okay, well, Tuesday afternoon update. I threw the doghouse and the fenders on there. We are pretty close. We got about 3 inches to trim the front of the doghouse so that I can move the fenders back. You can see right back. Can't do this with one hand. Whoop, right there. See the little gap there? That'll go back 3 inches. That'll center our wheel more on our fender. That's going to look awesome. Just for the heck of it, you can see some 2x4s sticking out of there. I did throw a seat in there because I just wanted to check out what the fitment would look like. It's going to be awesome. Got to build a floor now, and it's Tuesday afternoon. I would like to get the Crossmember built for the transmission so the drivetrain is set, and that would be the goal for this week. If I can accomplish that, we can finish the floor and really move forward. So Tuesday evening, afternoon, let's go. Okay, so what I did here is I just put my angle degree finder just on top of the valve cover here, and we are pretty much smack dab at 3 degrees here. So that's where I'm gonna keep the output. We're gonna assume that, you know, we're same here on the output shaft of the transmission. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build my cross member from here across. I actually have the old part that attached down there. I'm gonna cut that off and I'm gonna use some square tube to build this cross member. Then the drive line will be finalized in its position. I can try setting up the diff so that we know the length there, and then I'm gonna have to have that drive shaft shortened to match this. Another thing that I realized is if I bring this down here, we're kind of off the frame here because there's a little high spot there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of, you can see I put some paint on there. I'm going to cut that out and I'm gonna kind of channel the frame right there a little bit, just this little edge, and then I'll backfill with an angle iron turned upside down so that we keep the strength of the frame there, but then it'll allow that area of the A-pillar to drop down just a little bit so that it is, you know, lower on the frame, and that'll bring this area here, this mount. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off here and down. I'm actually gonna take this one and put it on the passenger side, and this one, I'm gonna move that one over here so that I can put my front mount right on the frame, because if this is reversed, you can see it's kind of triangular shaped. The angle, if I transpose them, driver and passenger, then I can use the passenger side one over here, put it on the new piece of metal that I'm gonna weld in here, and it'll mount directly to my frame here. So first things first, we got our angle here. Let's build a cross member for the transmission. Okay, so here's the old cross member for the transmission. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save the mount here. I think I'm just gonna cut here and here. We'll cut the bottom off, and then I will maybe box off the ends and then use this part on my square tube to make the mount for the transmission. But the rest of this won't fit. This is where the catalytic converter used to be on one side. This was around the little notch in the frame here, so I can't use the whole thing, but zip, and we're gonna make our new mount. So I'll do that now. So here's my thought process. This is the section that I cut out that has my mount for the transmission there. This is a piece of 1 1/4 tube, pretty thick. I think it's 1/8 inch thick wall on that. They got a 1/4 inch angle iron here. What I'm gonna do is I'll cut like, I don't know, 5 inches, 6 inches of this. And then I'll cut 2 pieces, 1 for each side of the frame rail. This will run in between. This fits right inside of there. And also I have gravity on my side, so I will put it up there and we will weld all the way around the sides here and plug weld in the middle. So I'll have a piece of 1/4 inch angle iron on both sides of the frame, this in the center, this supporting the trans. I think with some grade 8 bolts in there, I think that's not going anywhere. So that's kind of the plan right now. I'm gonna do some measuring, probably some cutting, and then we will weld all of this up to make our transmission cross member. Here's the setup and plan. Found my center line. I just did X's so I can find the center of my angle iron here. So we're gonna drill through that. I got my drill press set up here. I'm just gonna drill these 4 holes. I think I'm gonna do 4 3/8 bolts through this. I think that's plenty. All it's doing is holding the end of the transmission up. There's not a lot of torque on this. So I think that'll be adequate with grade 8 bolts. So I'm gonna drill these holes and then I will put that into the transmission mount. I think what I'll do is I will just put that into the car when I've got the ends welded on, and then after I've got the ends welded on, I can center this thing on the transmission, actually bolt this to the transmission mount, and then put a couple tacks on the sides of this so that I know that's exactly centered where it needs to be, saves me doing any measuring or anything like that. So first things first, drilling some holes. So not to beat a dead horse on the concept, but I have my 1/4 inch plate that's going to bolt to the frame there. Here's my 1 1/4 tube. This is loose because what I'm going to do is after I've got this welded to this, I'll take it in the frame, I'll clamp it in place. I can drill my holes so that they are, you know, semi-permanently mounted. And then I will bolt these to the frame rails, get this centered on the transmission, and then we can tack it on either side wherever the center is, then take it out and then fully weld this to our support here. One thing, again, for novice fabricators, what I did in the corner here, if you can see, I chamfered a little bit more on the bottom corner of my square tube there, just so that I could get that to sit flush on my 1/4 inch angle iron, so that I could get it all the way flush there. And I'm gonna weld all the way around and all the way here. And I don't think that thing is gonna go anywhere. So now we're gonna do some welding. Well, here's my welded in cross member, and I feel pretty satisfied with my self-taught welding. So I'm going to take that as a little pat on my own shoulder, and I'm going to take this and we're going to put it in the car and clamp each side to the frame so we can center that, tack that, weld that in. Then we'll drill our holes and bolt it in and be done with our drivetrain motor mounts and transmission cross member. So feeling good about today. So I actually decided to take the cross member out because it was kind of tight in here. So I marked my centers for my cross member here. So I will drill my holes and then mount this back up and bolt it in. So to mount this up, I had to come over to my magic box of bolts, and I did find 4 that'll be acceptable for now. We'll replace those with grade 8 hardware later, but you know, it's always nice having one of these magic boxes that you never know what's in there, but mostly you get lucky if you find something you need. Okay, so cross members in, transmission is mounted. We are good to go. The drivetrain is now secured. We got our motor mounts done. We got our cross member done. We got basically everything kind of snugged up. It's good, it's in place. And next step will be to finish the floor so that we can, you know, do whatever's next after that. Obviously got to work on the wiring. Yeah, that's just something we'll cross when we get there. So for tonight, I'm cleaning up. That's gonna do for this video, I think. Again, if you made it this far, I really, really appreciate it. Like the video if you want, subscribe if you want, and you can watch me finish building the rest of this 1937 Master Deluxe. So thanks for coming back, everybody. I appreciate it. We will see you next week.